Hello, everybody. You are listening to Outcomes of Sun Radio podcast with my delightful and amazing co-host, Melissa Yamaguchi. I'm Mariel Hemingway. I hope I'm delightful and something.
Lovely.
Oh, lovely. Oh, lovely. You really are.
So lovely.
So lovely. Anyway, what are we going to talk about today for a few minutes? Because we've got such a good guest.
Oh my gosh.
I think we're going to talk a long time to her.
I read an interesting article that I thought was worth we're going to need to spend time on it in the future, but listen to this. Doctors have their own diagnosis. It's called moral distress from our health system. So this entire article that I read this morning talks about how so many doctors are literally in moral distress because they can't spend more than 15 minutes with their clients unless it's a rural doctor who makes house calls. They really are in this dilemma because everyone knows the medical practice, emphasis on practice, is part of understanding how to move forward is understanding your patient. Understanding how he or she walks, understanding how he or she is affected by their child's marriage or the death of a loved one or whatever's going on. And if you don't have time to sit down and make a moral, spiritual, mano a mano connection with whoever's in front of you before you make a diagnosis, then there's this distress that our medical industry is starting to feel.
Wow, very, very interesting. Well, it makes sense. I'm glad they have a little bit of moral distress, only because I think that's a check and balance. They should be, because they have to take responsibility for some of the things that they're recommending, don't you think? I mean,
well, I think it's a double-edged sword. I think that when you
and that's not accusatory.
When you're mandated by the powers that be, wherever those powers are coming from, that you have to behave in a certain way. I think it creates a little bit of a dilemma on how you move forward. And I think that, and I'm not absolving anybody of anything, because there've been plenty of people throughout history who've made mistakes. But I just think that this collective admission that, hey, we're having a hard time here. Rolling along, there's, we can talk about a lot of God complex that's happened over the years and a lot of things mistakes that have been made and yes, I'm not minimizing that on any stretch. This intrigued me, this article, because it shows that they're human.
Yeah.
That this is starting to get to them. We can push ourselves to the limit. Let's take that just for a quick second and take that same scenario and put it into any other industry. Our food industry, people who are manufacturing food, our clothing industry, people who are hiring people to make clothing, whether it's here or abroad. Take it to our NFL players, take it into any slice of life. And at some point, the human spirit goes, white flag, help, SOS. And so if our medical industry is now, and there may have been grumblings and speak ups before, but this article that I read came out today that this is a dilemma that people feel like these doctors are saying, I am not given enough time. I'm not allowed to connect with my patient.
And I do believe it's why this kind of Eastern philosophy, holistic kind of viewpoint has become so popular, because like our guest that we have on spends an hour with you. Like nobody she's not a doctor. I get that. But it's why these holistic alternative methods have become popular, because we feel we're being taken care of, as opposed to we're just, you feel like a business when somebody comes in and they got 10 minutes for you. 15 is a long time, maybe just 5. I mean, that's crazy. But it's also they're in a business or they're in a hospital that's huge and whatever. And that is, I get it. And to be honest, it's actually really sad. But I mean, you've come across this with your,
with my mom, with my father-in-law, when my dad was in the hospital.
They come in and they're like, I'm done. And I've given you my diagnosis. And the truth is, well, if you spent a little bit more time, you might have noticed. I mean, you talk about this on our show, that my father-in-law's gait was off. But if you don't have the time to see that,
You
then
don't
you're,
see them walk in, and
yeah,
the rooms are the size of a broom closet. They come
yeah,
in, they talk to you for a few minutes, and they get out. And
yeah,
you just feel like a whirl. It feels like a whirlwind. So the patients are starting to feel what's going on.
yeah,
And as we say on this show, there is no one size that fits all. We have
yeah.
to each take responsibility. We have to step forward. If we don't feel empowered enough or strong enough to take responsibility for ourselves, then we need to surround ourselves with people who are willing to step in for us. I mean, I'm an advocate. I will step in for my mom, for my father, for my father-in-law, my mother-in-law, my husband, my kids, you, people that I love know that they've got an advocate. We all need advocates.
Absolutely. I mean, even because the truth is, even if you're healthy and you're really smart about stuff, if something happens to you and you're not able to
Right.
deal with that, you need somebody who's going to be there by your side saying, wait a second,
Right.
let's stop. Let's look at all my options. Let's look at all the things that are going on. You need to know about her lifestyle or his lifestyle or what they do or what
That's
they
right.
take and all that stuff. It's a lot of information, but it's a lot of information that's kind of being, nobody's paying attention. But I mean, the classic example is when you go and an elderly person goes to 3 different doctors and no doctor number 1 isn't telling doctor number 3
That's true.
how
It's
many
true.
medications they're on.
It's true.
And you can't mix those medications. It's insane.
Mariel, it's like if you get a DUI in Alabama, should you get your driver's license in Nevada?
Yeah.
I mean, don't we have a way of talking to each other to protect everybody else from ourselves and from us and help us? I mean,
exactly. It's crazy. I say it's crazy. All right. Hey, everyone. You are amazing. We love you. Don't go anywhere because our guest next is such an extraordinary woman, a friend. Also, I am one of her clients and we'll let you know more about her. But, stick around because, she's so cool. You're listening to Out Comes the Sun Radio with Melissa Yamaguchi and Mariel Hemingway. That's me. Okay. As a mental health advocate and author, I love books. Books have the capacity to inspire, educate, transform, and ultimately help readers all over the world. So if you want to publish your book or if you need help writing your story, I highly recommend Mindstir Media, rated the #1 best book publisher around the country. Mindstir Media can help you no matter where you are in the book writing or publishing process. Go to mindstirmedia.com to learn more and schedule a consultation. Hello, everybody. You are listening to Out Comes the Sun podcast with my brilliant host, Melissa Yamaguchi, and myself, Mariel Hemingway. And we have such a great guest. I'm super excited because I'm a client of hers because her work is just profound. And I'm sore today because I got work done yesterday and damn, girl, you went in there hard. She goes in, she does it's physical therapy and movement, and it's integrated into your lifestyle and what you're eating and how you're moving and whether you're walking properly or whether you're doing anything the right way. Tiana Ringer is her name, and she is a physical therapist, a kinesiologist. She has so many skills, and her understanding of life is really what is just profound for me. I enjoy working with her so much. And I was sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, I was sitting there in pain and she was digging into it. And I thought, you've got to be on the podcast because Melissa and I have to talk to you about really what you're doing and that integration of the body into your food, into your lifestyle, right? Because sorry, Melissa, Bobby, not Bobby. Melissa and I really talk about lifestyle, food, exercise, breathing, and you're a big proponent of that, drinking water, getting sun, getting light. How do you move your body? It's just not enough to just move. Sometimes you've got to move properly. Anyway, we're thrilled to have you. And maybe just to give some context to the incredible work you do, maybe you could tell us really what it is that you do. it would be kind of helpful for those of us that are not articulate, perhaps.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that kind introduction, Mariel. It's been a pleasure working with you. And now I can say that because you said it first. So it's patient responsibility. If the patient does not want other people to know, there is patient confidentiality with that. But actually you did hit all the points, and probably better than I would, because it's in ways that everyone would understand. How you're walking, how you're moving, how you're climbing stairs. It's so funny. The way we learn, and this is something that I know you and even Bobby, you mentioned him, will talk about. We learn by observing people in our lives. And what I found is sometimes we pick up habits and ways of doing things. That movement's not necessarily wrong, but if we're trying to get to a certain point in our life, whether that's pain-free or making sure a muscle's not working properly, or making sure a certain muscle is working when it comes to exercise, when we're actually in the gym, or purposeful, intentional exercise, we want to hit a certain muscle group or target a certain muscle group. What I find is sometimes the habits we're unaware of. We're not taught in school how to move, how to bend, dorsiflex our ankle, how to bend our ankle, or that it really is okay if our knee passes our toe if we're doing a squat, and that is case dependent. So really what I find is it's bringing people's awareness to how they are moving and what they are trying to achieve. And in trying to achieve that, is the path that they're taking, is the movement that they're taking really the best thing for them based on what they're trying to achieve.
Right.
Then, now and then we bring in the nutrition stuff and the biochemistry. So very early in my career, I started actually working with strength and conditioning coaches and professional physical therapists who are working with professional athletes, hockey teams, football teams. And I learned there that food had an impact on how we move. And so then when, in this society, especially in Los Angeles, we're very proud about what we eat. We have, it really is a big part of our culture. If you go to Erewhon, you see that there's certain foods, all organic, made with certain ingredients. And taking in those foods, for some of us, I've learned that there are things that can happen biochemically in our body, and that can actually change how our tissue functions. That can change how our tissue feels. And it's not necessarily at over one day or one night, but it's something that happens over time, right? So we're talking, instead of 2 days or a week from now, we're talking, if we do the same things over and over again, what are we looking and feeling like 10 years from now?
Yeah.
15 years from now, right? And again, those may even be cultural or nutrition habits that we picked up from very young.
Yeah.
For example, I come from an Italian family. My mom's Italian. My dad is not Italian. He's actually from the United States, but we grew up in a very Italian culture, and I ate a lot of pasta. You better believe that had an impact on how I felt and how I moved later on. So I started pulling all of this from being a physical therapist. I was a ballet dancer. I pulled movement specificity. And then I started getting into biochemistry, working with Lisa Regan. She's got her PhD in exercise endocrinology. She's a clinical nutritionist. She's a biochemist. And we started working together, and she started teaching me about biochemistry. And now I started putting all of this together. And then the last part you're bringing up is the pain. So I hope that doesn't scare anyone, but I do find that when our tissue gets tight and stiff from maybe what we're eating and how we're moving, we need to break that down. And we can go into more detail into why that is. But the breakdown I find that works the best has been these guys. My thumbs get a lot of work. And unfortunately, you do feel bruised and painful sometimes the next day. But what I find on the table and then off the table is, how can we open up movement and then use movement to really hone it in, lock it down, and get people moving confidently again? And then how can we integrate the nutrition and the water? And it really becomes like you said, exactly what you said, like a whole package, whole life package and investigation, really.
Yeah, well, and I did talk about the pain, but let's just say I only came to you twice before yesterday, right? I had come to you twice, and the improvement that I had in my range of motion was like, I mean, even you were like, oh my gosh, this is so much better, right?
Yeah.
So, and I want to make a little side note to that. When you go to somebody who has the kind of credentials that you have, do what you say. And you told me to do these exercises. And I know Melissa will, she's very much like me. When we get on something and we're told to do something, we do it. Like, so I did the exercises, I did them every single day, and they made me stronger. And now, consequently, my hips are more balanced. You know, I had a hip issue and the pain and all that stuff, which I would prefer to take your pain of digging into also old tissue that hasn't been like it's been holding on stuck. It's also compensating for the other side that it's taken so much of the abuse for the last couple of years. Anyway, so it's important to note that I made such an improvement in that, you know, where you're touching and how the thing that I find fascinating is that, you know, you'll be touching something on my neck and it affects my hip. You'll be touching something on my knee and it affects my ankle or the other hip. You know, like it's crazy, but the body is so fascinating. I just find it also fascinating. So I'm going to let you ask a question, Melissa, because I just could go on.
You're going to let me. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
A lot of things are coming to mind when you were speaking. And one of them I think is what this must mean for someone of your profession, for the way things have been shifting the last, 10, 15 years, when much of our work is down looking on a cell phone, and the tension in our body curving our spines over. And couple that with when we were under the siege of COVID and we were all locked in our homes. And so the stress and tension in our body and the way that our posture's changing with the way we look down on our computers or our phones, I can only imagine how much more intense that makes your work. But one of the things that I'm really proud of that we do on the show is we really are able to bring on experts and geniuses in their field, such as yourself, not to blow too much hot air up your backside, but to really bring in someone who knows what she's doing and give our audience tips. So, I mean, I've got a pen and paper ready. I'm ready to take notes. If you have, for those of us that are, all of us, every living being, whether we're here or we're in Italy or we're in New York, wherever we are listening to this around the world, what are, in your opinion, I hate to ask you to reduce it to maybe 5, but what are some real key things that you would say that we need to start doing on a day-to-day basis, that we need to start reminding ourselves of?
Yeah, well, I love this. And I'm going to try to keep it within the podcast time because I can talk for hours on everything that you and Mariel just brought up. You know, the first thing I would say is now in a session, I'm always thinking of what is the number one thing that someone can do that will make the most impact. And then what's number 2, 3, 4. So to come up with 5 things, I'm used to doing that. We can start somewhere that the general population can benefit from. I just want to hit on a few things. You know, you did mention we are this population that are on our cell phones. You know, we're in this forward posture. Our head is forward. What I find now, the other part of that we need to consider is the tension that comes from the anxieties and the constant beep. My cell phone went off. Oh, I have another text message. And then the sympathetic hit that you get from that. So pulling from the biochemistry side, and again, Lisa's work and my work, and we have to understand this going into this, is the stress that people are going through now is actually, for the most part, I'm not going to say everyone, because there's always like, it's not true for everyone, for the most part, creating more tension because we're more stressed. So we're getting this biochemical change more often. And then when people come in, their tissues are tighter. And, you know, we're creating changes in the body that we really do need to address things like, what are you eating? How are you hydrating? Is it really hydration, and is your body holding on to it? So the first thing I would say with regards to the stress, and something that, like, as a physical therapist, we're taught to be also respiratory therapists when we're working with cardiovascular patients, is actually breathing. And this is pulling now also from Brian McKenzie's work, who,
Hello, Brian.
yeah. he's been amazing at bringing some of the information. I remember when I met him and how he was talking about breath work for athletes and individuals on a level that I'm like, wow, I've learned everything that you're teaching. I've never thought of that application. So the number one things I tell people is like, first thing is, how are you breathing? How are we aligning ourselves? Are we breathing hunched over? Because that's going to affect us and our biochemistry. Or are we able to take a nice deep breath up tall? So the first thing is, if we can sit up tall on a hard surface where we feel our sit bones or the bottom of our hips on something, we get into a neutral spine. That means our curve in our spine is neutral. We're getting that S curve, chin nice and tall. And through our nose, we take a few deep breaths comfortably. So we're not going to pass out, not too long, not too short. And we want to open our rib cage and try to breathe fully through our rib cage, and then let the belly expand, and then exhale, whether it's through the mouth or through the nose. And what this is going to do, it'll relax you. And now there's new research out that shows about the physiological side. So the first thing is practicing your breath. It does more than just calm you down. It starts to activate certain muscles, for example, your core, your deep core, that are typically not going to be active in this hunched over posture. A lot of people's pain that I see who sit at a desk are because their fascia starts getting bound down into these postures. Okay. Now, if you're someone, this will lead into my second point. If you're someone that tends to be more forward, or this curved posture, shoulders up, or looking down at a cell phone, or neck pain, the second thing I would say is finding ways to open up your chest. And that would be a fascial stretch. Now that can be going in between a door frame with both hands up on a diagonal, coming forward and stretching out through the chest, but that can create some pain or impingement on the shoulder. So you can modify that. You can put your hands behind your head, and you can pull your elbows back and squeeze your shoulder blades back, look up to the sky and just open up that chest. And then on the exhale, you relax and come down. So opening up and getting that stretch through the rib cage and through the chest, and then coming down, just to create a little bit more stretch through that area. You know, the third thing I would say, so we're going from the top, we're talking about breathing and stretching. Let's go all the way down to the feet. Okay. So we're sitting a lot. We're not moving our feet very well. And the number one thing I find that relates to back pain is lack of ankle mobility. So if this is what's your foot, I don't want to stand up, but it's the ability of your ankle to dorsiflex. And the biggest part of that too, I'm going to bring this one step deeper, is your big toe. So when we're walking, the last part, and this is where we teach people how to walk, the last point of contact from your foot to the ground should be your big toe. If you start to observe some people, how they walk, as I mentioned, with habits, we start to, maybe some people walk with their feet in a little bit of an external rotation. I was a ballet dancer for a long time. So I walked with my feet in external rotation for a very long time because I was afraid to lose my turnout. But when you actually start to walk with your feet straight, a lot of things start to change. So the big toe, if we think about pushing down through our big toe when we walk, as we're stepping off on that toe off, and it doesn't need to be too hard, like maybe all of this is like maybe 30% of your strength, you'll actually start to feel a hamstring and a glute contraction. And if we're a little bit more conscious of that, that's going to help train our ankle, and it's going to help with pain up the spine.
Wow.
I'll give you an example, actually, and this is really important. The golf shoe. So Nike Free came out with a golf shoe in 2013. And golfers walk about 6.5 miles for those 18 holes.
Yeah.
Okay. If what was going on is the shoe, the golf shoe was like a dress shoe. And so it was very stiff. You couldn't move that big toe very much. And the change happened, the change in golf happened, and this is really cool because it relates to people who walk and athletes. Lisa was actually an integral part on the toe box of the golf shoe. She was working with professional PGA Tour golfer at the time. And that toe box, she changed that toe box because that athlete at the time was getting Achilles tendon tears, had some low back pain. With the change in the toe box, she helped a number of golfers everywhere achieve better mobility through the big toe. It helped reduce the frequency of injury. And so we can consider that in any activity we're doing. Are we wearing a shoe that allows our big toe to move? Are we even moving our big toe? So that's
Wow.
number 3.
Wow.
Who
Yeah.
knew that the toe bone was connected to the parse or?
The toe bone's connected to the feet all the way to the neck.
Yeah, I love it.
And so that's when Mariel's like, oh, and you're touching my neck and it's helping my back. It's all connected.
Absolutely.
Pardon?
No, absolutely. Keep going. We love this. I love this.
So the 4th thing, continuing with the feet, as a fascial therapist, what I've discovered working on people and also in my studies is that the fascia really starts at the bottom of the foot on 4 points. So if we're looking at your foot and we're going to say, this doesn't look like a foot, but we'll say this is the big toe. Okay. This is your foot and this is your heel. Now you have 4 main points that fascia starts and will go all the way up the body. So it goes from the foot all the way up to the top of the head. The first one I'd say is on the inside arch. Okay, so if we get like some sort of ball and roll on that inside arch. Now, generally you want to have some sort of maybe a squishy ball, not too hard. You can use a golf ball. When you get used to it, I have like these little river rocks in my shower. So when I'm in the shower, I just put my foot and I mobilize it on different size river rocks. Okay. You don't want to do too much because you do have very sensitive structures here in the ligaments that you don't want to over mobilize. So start with something soft. That inside arch is the first point, and you'll feel a little bit of tenderness if you poke there. Now, the second one is on the other side. So if this was your baby toe, we have something called the 5th metatarsal. Right at the bone of the 5th metatarsal, where that tarsal head hits the 5th metatarsal, we actually have our peroneal muscle, and that muscle gives us lateral stability on the outside of the foot. That muscle gets really tight in people, especially who walk with their feet in external rotation, because it's not getting proper movement. So we can roll the ball through the inside arch and then on the outside of that arch. Now, the other 2 points are going to be around the heel. So on the inside and outside of that heel, of that calcaneus. You can definitely go up the middle and roll around the metatarsals. Just be careful on the heads of the metatarsals because it can be a little sensitive. But if we hit those 4 points and you do that and you have back pain, I guarantee you're going to feel a difference, maybe all the way even up to your neck. And so when we were talking about some of the tender points that we can find in the body, I find that with this knowledge of understanding how things go from the feet all the way up to the head, I've been studying all kinds of things. I've even gone into functional neurology, understanding how the eyes and having a strabismus or something with the eyes can offset our head and then can affect the fascia all the way down our body.
Wow.
So hang on, I'm so sorry. Can I ask you? So if someone's vision is off kilter, right? Their left eye is stronger than the right eye before, and they haven't got it corrected with glasses or something.
Yeah.
This is affecting their gait.
Yep.
Is holy smokes.
Yeah. So one thing, and this will lead to the 5th thing that I'll ask people to do that the general public can do. I don't have a pen. If you get a pen, you want a pen, something with a tip. And you start to bring the pen closer to your eyes, right around the bridge of your nose, and you practice convergence, just allowing the pen to come close. It doesn't have to come too close. Now you want to make sure the very tip of the pen stays very clear, and then you bring it back out. And you can practice this convergence. I would really only do it for about 20 seconds. You can get a headache if you do have something wrong with the eyes. So hold it up a little higher, right at the bridge of the nose. Make sure the very tip of the pen stays very clear. You'll find that you may want to move the eyes. So you want to try to hold that and then bring it back out. Give your eyes a rest 3 times.
I love this.
And so one of the things we see, and that
I'm seeing double rings in my ring light. And
so don't worry about the ring light. Really focus on the pen.
Hey, little did my older brother know when I was a kid that he was helping me, because he used to
You're watching that finger come at you. Yeah.
Does that help with
walk straight?
Does that help with vision? Does that help
does.
like strengthen those muscles?
Wow.
I'll tell you something really funny. When COVID happened and we were wearing the masks,
Yeah.
my vision got better because the mask puts something here. So there's something that we do in an eye doctor. Like, I am not an eye doctor. I do the basic stuff, but they could do binasal occlusion where they have a prism that pulls the eye inward. And what I found is wearing the mask, it actually pulled your eye inward because you had this thing on the top of your nose that forced your eyes to come into the center.
Wow. Hey, we all could see better, but we all had like rash and rosacea underneath the mask. But hey.
And then our mouth breathing because we were having the mask on.
Yeah.
But it helped your vision. And it helped us.
Wow.
Yeah. Well,
so those would be the 5 things. And you know, with the vision stuff, it does happen that if we do have one eye stronger than the next, I have seen people, because I've been treating concussions since 2015, I think.
wow.
The suboccipitals are very affected by the eyes. And if we get a concussion, they can get tight and our neck can get pulled or tweaked in a range. And now our vision system is very good. Our vision system is going to keep our body straight. So then what I find is we start getting rotations all the way down the spine, all the way down into the hips and into the feet in order to keep our body in this forward momentum. So that's where we get one shoulder higher than the other.
Yeah.
Rotated, and then we get the spinal muscles that get tight on one side, and then the lower down they're tight on the other. And then if we look down at our feet, one foot's turned out and the other foot's straight. And so this is how I look at the body. I pull all of these things in and I try to figure out what's the number one thing that I can hit that's going to make the biggest difference in this person's life. Because I know I'm a human too. I get busy. I'm sure everyone on this podcast is busy. It's very hard to do your exercises. So Mariel doing her exercises is like, thank you. So trying to find like the few things that you can do that are easy. Rolling your foot on a ball, you could do it. Hey, you could do it while you're on this podcast, right?
Oh yeah.
Walking, thinking about walking with your toe off. We all have to walk somewhere. We're all probably going to stand in line at some point. How can we think about we're pushing through the big toe and no one needs to know? Doing that stretch, take a little bit of a break, take some deep breaths, open up your chest, get that stretch through that pectoralis muscle, right? These are all simple things that I like to think are easy to integrate into our lives. I mean, the only thing you really got to do is grab a pen and go cross-eyed a few times. If you have like a 4.5-year-old, they'll laugh at you forever.
Fantastic.
And back when I was growing up, you'll go cross-eyed and they'll say don't do that because it'll stay like that. You'll get bonked.
You know, something that my father-in-law has had a few issues, and so we as a family kind of dove in, and we've all been helping out in different ways. And my son noticed that his gait was off, and so you know, this is not a slam on our medical industry by any stretch, but I've always been shocked when various doctors that he's gone to see just put ologist at the end of it, and he's gone to all the ologists. So when he goes to them, no one was noticing that his gait was different. And when my son, who's studying neuroscience in college, just asked the rheumatologist, would you check out my grandfather's gait? Mm-hmm. And she was like, oh yeah. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't until, and it was my son was saying, it's like, how come they're not looking at his walk? And I said, I don't know. I think our noses are so far deep into, whatever we're doing, we lose sight of it. And I love the fact that you're giving us seemingly simple, the golf ball on the floor. My husband's done that for years, and because he stands on his legs all day and his hamstrings get really tight. As a matter of fact, I need him to come see you. His hamstrings, his hips, his lower back, it's always really tight.
He comes to see me though.
Yeah. You're a little uptight. Go sit Tiana. Get over there. And I'm throwing golf balls at him as he's walking out the door. Yeah. So he rolls his foot on a golf ball all the time because his feet, he said they feel calcified from standing on his feet so much that underneath him feels like it's crunchy. And so he uses the golf ball not knowing all what you're sharing. I think it's fascinating that we really can take control of our body back.
Oh yeah. Our bodies, you said so many things there. The first thing is, I understand, I've been in the medical system. When you get so focused on what it is that you do, sometimes we're looking, I'm not saying all doctors, but sometimes there's the answer that's the easiest, there's the complicated answer, then there's what is the patient actually going to do? And often the very basics get lost sometimes, only because we're with that patient for a very minimal amount of time. And it's unfortunate, you know, and
Yeah.
that, you know, so
Yeah.
we have to be, that's what I'm saying. We're not taught in school how to take care of our own bodies, and we have to be advocates for ourselves, myself included. Now, the other thing you said that's very good to know. Well, first of all, like the gait is very interesting, because everyone, you can get a lot of information out of watching someone walk. I watch people walk all the time, and I feel like, can I just stop seeing this? And then the second part about your husband rolling his feet out, if we pay attention to our bodies, we're external beings, we're on our cell phones. I am too, not blaming anyone, but taking the time to pay attention on what's going on and what feels good. We always feel good when we eat something that's good for us. We feel good when we do a stretch that's good for us. Sometimes we do need a little bit of intervention to know exactly the right way to go. But, you know, like your husband rolling his feet out, that's amazing. I wanted to mention, this pulls on 2 points. When we talk about crossing our eyes, they're going to stay like that, and the crunchiness that your husband's feeling in his feet. What's fascinating about the body is fascia. Okay, so about approximately 30% of contraction happens through fascia, not just muscle tissue, which means, and our fascia goes through our entire body, which means we have a contractile component. That also means that in certain postures and positions, your body will first create a posture, and then it will start to fixate there. So what happens is we start getting collagen laid down into these areas of our body, and it sort of starts to get densified, not calcified, but it gets dense because we get this increase in collagen laid down. So for example, your husband's standing all day. One of the reasons could be that he's getting density around the fascia of the ankles. When we're in these postures all the time, it hurts even more when you come to, you know, I had a professional surfer today who swims all the time. You better believe when I get into those swimming muscles, if they haven't been worked on, they're going to be painful, because the body's so used, it starts to form into the position that we've been taking over the years. And so part of the work that I do is to help give the fascia a little bit of breath, give the body and the posture a little bit of breath, so it can move into other postures.
Wow. This is also, I told you, Melissa, she was so great. Amazing. Anyway, we are running out of time, which is, I mean, we could talk for hours. And thank you so much for these really gems, these points that we can take away.
Absolutely.
I mean, I just sat here. I know Melissa wrote them all down because she's good like that, and then I'll get a rendition of that.
It's recorded.
But you know, being able to do something in your regular life, it's huge. And just to know that you can take responsibility for this body that works for you, because, you know, our message all the time is, look, we are our best teachers, our best nutritionists, our best doctors, our best whatever. Not that we don't need help, but once you get that help, take it, use it. Do these things, because they do make a difference. And it's so nice to know that you can do small things in your life that are going to like show a difference, just knowing, and also just knowing that your eyes are connected to how you're walking. I mean, all these things are very cool and amazing. So that just means that you have to come back.
I would love to.
Back with another five tips, and then you have to come back again with another 5 tips, and just keep coming back. You're amazing, Tiana. Thank you very, very much.
It's a pleasure to meet you.
I'm so grateful.
Pleasure to meet you too. Thank you so much for having me. This has been a wonderful time, and I look forward to coming back.
You know what? Okay.
Tiana on repeat.
Don't go anywhere, everybody. We're coming back, and Melissa will have an energy tip for you. So you're listening to Out Comes the Sun. I'm Mariel Hemingway with my partner, Melissa Yamaguchi.
Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Scott Mills, and you are listening to Out Comes the Sun Radio with the phenomenal Melissa Yamaguchi and, of course, the brilliant Mariel Hemingway. I am so excited to be here to talk about brains, about super resilience, and about all things that will make you decrease anxiety and live a better life. I'd look forward to seeing you on my website at www.scottwmills.com. We'll look forward to seeing you soon.
Welcome back to Out Comes the Sun podcast and radio. Thank you so much for sticking around. I'm Melissa Yamaguchi, and I'm here to tell you something about energy. So energy gets stuck in your home. It gets stuck in your workplace, but it also gets stuck in your body. And in Feng Shui, we break it down to the 8 different centers of your body and how your body handles that energy around you. So I'm just going to today talk about a couple of the centers, the first 3 where it gets stuck the most frequently, and how does energy get stuck? Energy gets stuck by the food choices you make, certainly, but it gets stuck most importantly from our worry, anxiety, stress, and fear. And this is a great point for us to bring up because we just heard from the genius Tiana how we can remove tension from our body and how that tension can affect our posture and our breathing. So in Feng Shui, we talk about these different centers of the body and how energy gets stuck. So let me help you identify them. The first center is the area around your private organs. Let me get this down here right. Your bowel, your anus. Are we allowed to say that on air? Your bladder, your pelvic floor. And so this area, which has to do with reproduction, procreation, elimination, your creative energy is right here. And when it's blocked, you feel a lot of anxiety. You can get sexual addiction. You can have confusion, depression. All this takes place when there's energy blocked in that very first center of your body. But when it's in balance, your creative energy flows. You don't feel stuck. Okay, well, that's great, Melissa. How am I supposed to get that energy removed from that area? By someone who does work like Tiana, by someone who can get you grounded in this area, recognizing where your anxiety comes from. So let's go through the other 3. There are 8. We'll talk about them at another time. Let's go to the second center. The second center has to do with your ovaries, your uterus, your colon, your pancreas, and your lower back. So it's that area really that's behind your belly button. It has to deal with consumption, digestion, elimination, breaking down of food into energy, and the balance of your blood sugar levels. In your bowel is where your serotonin is stored. So in this area, when you find your circadian rhythms are off and everything's messed up with your cycle, we have to look at that blockage of energy here. Social networks, structures, relationships, support systems, family, holding in or letting go. This is all affected in this area. So when you're balanced, you feel very safe and secure in your world. When you're out of balance, you get stuck feeling guilt, shame, pain, and you come from a place of lack. Wow, isn't that amazing what happens when energy isn't flowing inside your body? Let's talk about the third center for today. This is actually really your stomach. This is a lot of people I know. Mariel and I talk about this all the time on the show. And when Mariel's talking to you about the food you're eating, the choices you're making, how you move your body, a lot of that has to deal with the food we're eating disrupting our microbiome of our stomach. And Mariel shared that a lot on the show. And that is a huge part of this third center of energy in your body. Stomach, small intestine, liver, gallbladder, adrenal glands, kidney, spleen, liver. This is the pit of your gut. It has to do with self-importance, control, drive, willpower, aggression, and dominance. When you're balanced, your will is strong. It's strong enough for you to overcome your own environment, your own habits, your own conditions of life. When it's out of control, when it's stuck in that area, in that pit of your stomach, you are locked into a place of competition, control, and ego. Oh, wow. So we've got these 3 areas that I've talked about, from the base of where you sit, all the way up to the pit of your stomach. That's all we've covered today. different blockages from past history, from anxiety, from stress, all of this gets blocked in energy in our body. And in feng shui, it's not just about this, how your home is situated. It's not just about the color of car you're driving. It's literally about the energy as it flows through your body. So my quest when helping people with their energy in their lives is to not only have them fixate on the perfect color for the perfect bedroom or the perfect place to put their coffee table, but to really dial in to their own body and realize, where do I feel stuck in my life? And if you can't identify, I feel stuck in energy in the pit of my stomach, or I feel stuck in my anus, whatever this is, if you can't identify that, then be honest about the issues that you believe you have. If you think, yeah, you know what, there's some people at my work and every time they get a raise, I feel really jealous and I feel like I got to compete with them. If you're in constant competition with everyone around you, that's energy that's blocked in the pit of your stomach, and that's ego. If you feel like you have anxiety when it comes to sex, or even the conversation about it, or your addiction to something, anything, addiction to drugs, addiction to sex, gambling, whatever your addictions are, then we're talking about a first center energy blockage. And the way we rid our bodies of these blockages is identifying it, addressing it, being honest about it, if not with others, at least ourselves, seeking out people who can help us and help our body unlock tension and history in our body. Our body holds on to history, and it may manifest in our hips, or it may a lower back being thrown out, pain in our jaw. We don't know until we do deep energetic body work. So we'll dive further into this as a team here at Out Comes the Sun. Mariel's has a lot of background in this too. Hers is a different language, same lessons. We both are coming to you with a history of information that we have. And Tiana certainly kicked off a lot of information in this arena also. So stay tuned. We got a lot more sharing to do and a lot more diving in. You'll have to just keep coming back day after day to find out what we're sharing, because we got so much to share with you. Stay tuned. Coming up next, Mariel Hemingway with information about health and balance.
Thank you so much, Melissa. Yes, I'm going to give you a little bit of balance information, balance, health tip, whatever. Today, I want to talk a little bit about fermented foods, kind of in perfect keeping with what Melissa's tip was about. I mean, you know, fermented foods really are about creating healthy gut health, right? And good gut health means that you've got, you know, the right amount of bacteria, your digestion is working smoothly, and you've got enough energy. And interestingly enough, and we did talk about this on one of our shows, but we make 90% of our serotonin is made in the gut. Now, you know, like I probably just recently learned that, and I'm sure it's new information for a lot of people who are listening. So eating fermented food is a really good way to help, you know, get the gut strong. And what are fermented foods? Just so in case you are wondering, or you've been asleep for the last 5 years, where it's become very cool to eat fermented foods. Number one is probably the number one that you probably heard about and grew up knowing about was called sauerkraut. Now, not all sauerkraut is fermented, so you have to look and make sure that it says fermented. Usually raw is best, but fermented means that you put some sort of acid on it, and that acid ferments the vegetable or something like that, which kind of cooks it in a way, so it's not like raw. Anyway, raw. Sauerkraut is number one. Number two is kimchi, which is very much like a sauerkraut, but it's a spicier Asian sort of condiment that a lot of Asian cultures, and they really do have healthy gut health because they eat fermented foods all the time. Yogurt, of course, is a fermented food, and we all know about yogurt. I highly recommend that you don't do Yoplait, which is extremely high in sugar. Go with plain. Actually, Greek yogurt is one of the best. I Bobby and I are very into raw dairy because it's not pasteurized, which means it's not, you haven't like put a high heat to that dairy so that all the bacteria and the really good enzymes have been basically cooked out of it. So raw dairy when you can, but if not, at least the fermentation of yogurt, especially Greek yogurt, whole fat Greek yogurt, none of this non-fat stuff, because the minute you make something non-fat, then it becomes sugar. Very interesting point. I never would have known that in my non-fat days, thinking that, if you did dairy, you did non-fat milk. But the truth is, on farms, just so you know this, a little aside, on farms, when people have pigs and cows, what they do after they've gotten the milk and the cream and what have you, they take the watery leftover, which they now call non-fat milk, and they give that to the pigs to fatten them up. That should be a lesson to how much sugar is in non-fat, basically what non-fat milk is. So it's not very good for you. One of the fifth things is kombucha. Kombucha is a wonderful way to get a fermented, and it's a really good beverage. It is fermented. Not everybody loves kombucha. I guess it's an acquired taste. I quite like it. I don't have it all the time. I remember when I was first doing it, because I don't drink it all, it used to have a little bit of alcohol in it, and I felt like I was drunk. I mean, when I say a little bit of alcohol, I mean a little bit of alcohol, but that's how much of a baby I am. Anyway, miso is also a fermented food. Tempeh, which is from soy, from tofu, and it's been, fermented, and that's actually, in my opinion, the only way you want to eat tofu is tempeh, because it is fermented and makes it much easier to digest. Otherwise, I question whether soy and soy products are that good for you. And trust me, I spent years eating them, but I'm just not so sure, especially with all the problems with estrogen and all the different things, that unless it's super organic tofu, it might not be the best thing for you. Anyway, that's my information about fermented foods. Remember, it's making 90% of your dopamine and not your dopamine, but your serotonin, which makes you happy, and I'm happy. And I'm so happy to share with you. So thank you, everyone. That was fun. That was a fun tip time.
That was good. That was good. I love when we can share, not only from you and me, but when our guest has just chock full of information. I love learning right along with our audience. It's just a blast. I love it.
I'm doing all the exercise. I'm lifting up.
Okay. I don't know if you saw, I was texting you during the show, full disclosure, my camera froze. Okay, audience can be in on this. My camera froze. So I leave to Tiana talking and you guys are frozen. I come back and you're both like, and I was like, okay, I don't even know. You guys are like doing yoga stuff on the screen and I didn't even know where to jump in. I mean, I almost did the warrior pose or downward dog. I wasn't sure what was happening. You guys were like moving. When I left, you were frozen.
So good. Oh my gosh, people. We love that you're here every day that we're
Whenever
here.
you tune in.
Whenever you tune in, we're so happy that you're here. And we do have an exciting, we keep saying it every week. We have an exciting
people get ready. There's a train a-coming.
And it's coming. And it's getting closer all the time. I mean, so close. We're so close. We'll be announcing that super soon. Thank you so much for listening today. You're listening to Out Comes the Sun podcast radio show with my partner, Melissa Yamaguchi. I'm Mariel Hemingway. And always stay tuned and watch, because the sun will always come out.